Thank you. When people cannot live together in accordance with the teachings of the Quran and Sunnah, then Allah suggests that they separate in peace. In what way?
Peace.
Peace. And when you separate in peace, you don't need to spend $1 million on attorney fees. I'm sorry, the attorneys in the room, I'm not trying to make you go broke or anything. But, I mean, there are other things you can do to make money. But am I right? Those in the legal field, if you could separate in peace, you wouldn't have to spend a couple of $100,000 on a divorce, right? Is this what the Quran says? Or is this what Abdul Rahman says? The Quran says this. If you're a witness to Allah, then you're a witness to what I'm saying, because I'm speaking from the Quran. I'm speaking from the Kalam of Allah, the word of Allah. The parties should either hold together on equitable terms, chapter 2, verse 229. Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 229. The parties should either hold together on equitable terms, or separate with kindness. Let me tell you that the majority of separations, I have yet to see a separation with kindness. Now, you have?
I testify.
You'll testify? Okay. Now, I know they must exist out there. Don't misunderstand me. They exist, and may Allah bless you, but I'm not here to talk about the minority. I'm not here to talk about the 1 in 100 case or the 1 in 1,000 case. I'm here to talk about the majority of cases that are going on in this community. And Sister Fatima, who works for the masjid, talk to her about what she hears and what she sees in the community. Talk to Imam Tariq about what he hears and what he sees in the community. So yes, there are exceptions, but we're not here to talk about that today, nor are we here to brag about those people that are able to do that. A divorce may be revoked twice. Listen to the context of this, folks. Listen to the context. We're talking about divorce. We're talking about, what's it called? Divorce. What's the Islamic word? Talaq. Okay? A divorce may be revoked twice. After that, the parties should either hold together on equitable and fair terms or separate with kindness. It is not lawful for you men to take back anything of what you have ever given your wives, except when both parties fear that they would be able to keep within the limits ordained by Allah. There should be no sin upon either of them for what the wife may give up in order to free herself. Now, Ibn Thabit Qais was married to Jamila. And Jamila approached Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and said to him, I would like to divorce my husband. And he asked her, what is wrong with your husband? She said, my husband is a man of irreproachable character. In other words, he's perfect. But I dislike him as if I was to leave Islam. And he said to her, give him back the garden which he gave you for dowry, and you are granted a divorce. Why did she give the garden back? Because it belonged to his family. And that would have been unequitable for her to have land after the divorce when she goes on her way that belonged to his family. It was a garden. That's the aspect behind that. So now, does it mean that we've got to have this knockdown, drag-out stuff for people to be entitled to divorce based on what I've just read? No. But there are people that will espouse their version of Islam and say, if it wasn't adultery, if it wasn't fornication, if it wasn't this, and all of this is their own made-up desires, then you can't have a divorce. Yes, we know that the heavens shake when there's a divorce. We know that of the halals, the worst, the thing that Allah dislikes the most is divorce. No question about it. But is it halal?
Yes.
Yes. Even if it's just over, I don't like you. I got married to you, but I just don't like you. You're perfect and I don't like you. There exists a number of highly authentic ahadiths to the effect that the wife of Thabit ibn Qais, Jamila, came to the Prophet and demanded a divorce from her husband. And I already covered this. There are clear teachings in the Quran to prevent oppression and to intervene when it is occurring. The problem that I'm seeing is there's not enough intervention. Now, Imam from Brooklyn, my senior, used to do a lot of fundraising. Siraj Farhaj, Jazakallahu khairan. Jazakillahu khairan. You see, now, and I was having this conversation with my beloved brother Warren yesterday. In the days of the Nation of Islam and in the days of Warathin Muhammad, if a guy beat his wife in the African American community, the Imam, particularly Elijah Muhammad in the Nation of Islam, he got a couple of football players together. I'm talking about looking like quarterbacks from Notre Dame or something. And they would pay a visit to this brother, and they would exercise their version of the fruit of Islam. Fruit. But it wasn't the kind of fruit you want to eat. And they'd fix that brother up, and he had never beat his wife after that. Now that's not the kind of intervention I'm advocating, but I sure do admire them. And I'm going to tell you just like it is, I admire that kind of intervention. Because we're not intervening. We are pretending it's not there. And that's haram. There's no shepherd that pretends it's not there, and there's no imam that pretends it's not there. It's not in the job description to pretend it's not there. And by the way, while the box is going around, we did 3 lectures at Eastern Florida State College on Thursday morning. We gave away just under 100 Qurans. Usually on Sunday morning we collect enough money to pay for the coffee. If you could give a little more generously, it is a tax deduction if you write a check. We gave a Quran to every single person that listened to me lecture on Thursday morning. Tuesday? Thursday, right? Oh, I thought you said, okay. So help us to do double by putting money in the box. If 2 parties among the believers fall into a quarrel or fighting, what does it say to do? Can anybody read this for me? Make peace between them. Now here's what I've seen. And if you've seen something different, make sure you line up after class to confront me and tell me I'm wrong. Oh, you know what she said? You know what he said? Can you believe he did? Can you believe she did that? And it's dragging logs to the fire, which I believe is called namima. Instead of making peace, you're actually creating trials and fitna for people. Anybody ever been a witness to that? Wow, you guys aren't, based on the hands that are being raised today, you're not really aware of what's going on in your community. I'm really sad to hear that. If 2 parties among the believers fall into a quarrel or fighting, make peace between them. But if one of them goes on acting wrongfully toward the other, fight you all against the one who acts wrongfully until they comply with the command of Allah. How do we fight? Not with our fists, not with our sticks. How do we correct something Islamically? We first try to talk to the person about the commands of Allah. The last way that we handle something is with our hands. But we have a responsibility to try to make peace between them, not turmoil. By the time people get to my office, the in-laws have made so much turmoil that we have to have 3 or 4 sessions just to get through that. Just to heal from that before we can get to the real issues. I'm kidding. I'm not kidding with you. Maybe people don't know these verses from the Quran. But if one of them goes on acting wrongfully toward the other, fight you all against the one who acts wrongfully until they comply with the command of Allah. If they revert, make peace between them with justice. What I see is that we punish them for as long as the couple remains married. I'll never forgive him for what he did. This is what I hear. Astaghfirullah. Can you believe that he or she did this or that or this or that? Apparently this verse has never been read. What does Allah say? If you're standing up as a witness to Allah, you've got to know these verses when it comes to relationships and to issues about relationships. If they revert, make peace between them with justice and deal equitably with them, for verily Allah loves those who are fair and just and act equitably. The Quran says that Allah created human beings, male and female, to worship Him and to be His Khalifa, vicegerent on earth. Surah 2 verse 30, implementing His commands and following His guidance. Each person is equally and directly accountable to Allah, and neither gender has superiority over the other. Let me say it again, because some of you really aren't going to like me after today. Probably our attendance will be real low next week. That's okay. If the truth stops attendance, then that's just what it is. I'm not for sale. This is a big problem, folks. Each person, I'm going to say it again, is equally and directly accountable to God, and neither gender has superiority over the other. Within the family, each gender maintains his or her primary relationship to Allah and is responsible for contributing to a family environment that is God conscious. Yes, brother. Can you speak up?
What's the definition after Khalifa, vicegerent?
Vicegerent is like a trustee or a manager of the earth. Is the best sort of translation. Spouses are to interact with each other in ways that are part of an Islamic character. It is not an Islamic character to run around and gossip and slander about your spouse. It is not of an Islamic character to run and tell your mama what your wife or your husband did. Yeah, because more than likely mama can't be neutral. And mama ain't got a degree in mental health field, psychology, or social work, and more than likely she's going to take up for you and it's not going to help you. I'm just going to keep it for Rizzle for Stizzle. Spouses are to interact with each other in a way that are part of an Islamic character and should treat each other with respect, compassion, and love, mercy. Spouses are described in the Quran as a pair. Half of a pair cannot function completely in the material relationship, in the marital relationship, without the other. And neither half is inherently more valuable. Let me ask you something. If I have a pair of scissors and I take them apart, is one side of the scissor any more important than the other? If I take off this pair of shoes that I've got on up here and I hold the right shoe in my right hand and the left shoe in my left hand, is one shoe more important than the other?
Right shoe.
No, it isn't. Anything that works as a pair, then you need what? You need both. Is one side of it more important than the other? No. Half of a pair cannot function completely in the marital relationship without the other, and neither half is inherently more valuable. Both halves are interdependent and must work together in order to have a healthy and harmonious relationship. Each person or half has certain gender-specific roles to play that are complementary to each other. Women have unique qualities, enabling them to bear and nurse children. Thus, this is a unique role for them. My wife breastfed for 8 years. And you say, you're right. You think I'm kidding. I'm not kidding. And I know very few women that actually consistently breastfed for 8 years. I have never met a man that even thought he could have done that if he had the capacity. And yet there are things that we do as men that women wouldn't want to do either. Allah has made us complementary though. Men's roles are defined in Surah 4 verse 34 as follows. Men are protectors and maintainers of women because God has given the one more strength than the other and because they support them from their means. Allah knows best, but the word Qawamun here is the word used to describe the men. The root word of Qawamun is what? Qawm. And the root of Qawm is what? Help me, sister. Qiyam, right? What does Qiyam mean?
To stand.
To stand. So it is your job as a Muslim man to make your wife stand independently and firm and solid as a woman of God. Not to make her think that she's less than or not equal to you. Or that she's a doormat for you to walk over. Because God didn't make doormats and call them females. He exalted the woman to say she's the footstool to paradise, not the doormat. There's a lot of difference in the doormat and the footstool to paradise. Men are the protectors and maintainers. Girls, let me tell you something. Those of you who aren't married yet, don't walk away from this. Because we've got cowardly men today that come and say, I want my wife to meet me on an equal footing. Now I'm going to tell you just like it is, that's ignorance. Because it's a proven fact that women are earning 31 to 37 cents less per dollar than men. How can they meet you on an equal footing? How can that be justice? How can that be equality? Can't. Men are the protectors and maintainers. The scholars say that we are to maintain you physically, spiritually, emotionally, sexually, in every single way. It's a high calling to be a man in Islam. It's a huge responsibility. But many of the men don't want their wives to stand. They want them to fall. Or they want them to be, oh, Habibi, please give me this. Oh, Habibi, can I have? I sure would like this, Habibi. I really do need some grocery money to feed our children. When we look at the power wheel, the wheel of power and control, is how that men oppress women with economics, hiding money, making them have to beg for money. It's huge. Over and over and over again, I meet couples and the woman has no idea how much money the family has, and as soon as the problems come up, the husband starts sending money overseas into his brother's bank account. If you can tell me that that's equitable according to the Quran, show me. Because it's inequitable. And it's taking advantage of someone who is weaker than you economically, which is haram. Men are the protectors and maintainers of women because Allah has given the one more strength than the other. And what is the context of this word support? Allah knew that men would always earn more than women, even doing the same job. The Muslim man is the shepherd and imam of the family. This is more about responsibility than the far too often misunderstood possession of rights. I got my rights on you, baby. I hear this all the time. I got rights on you. And which I say, well, does she have any on you? The leadership role is to be fulfilled in according to the criteria specified in the Quran and the Sunnah. For example, decisions should be made through mutual consultation, through shura, and should not be determined unilaterally to be imposed on the other party. In Surah 42, verse 38, believers are those who conduct their affairs by mutual consultation, not by tyranny. Tyranny is a huge sin in Islam. Look at verse 66, verse 6 of Surah 65. Let the women live in the same style as you live and take mutual counsel together according to what is just and reasonable. What I see far too often is that the husband takes the money, sticks it into an account with his name just before things are about to break up. The husband is living in Dr. Phillips and the wife has a hard time living in Prime Hills, I'm sorry. How many have been a witness to that? Wow, I'm surprised, folks. I'm telling you, open your eyes. Talk to the imams and find out what's going on and take a stance against this. Not enough people in this class know what's going on. There must be room for negotiation and even disagreement, as was evidenced in the manner in which the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ treated his wives. The mutuality that is part and parcel of the relationship must never be forgotten. Spouses are described in Surah 2, verse 187 as garments for one another. Garments for one another. This signifies that they are each responsible to take care and protect each other. Each. It is a mistake for Muslims to believe that the men are superior to women, or that men have the right to control women or dictate to them. This attitude is completely contrary to the example of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, who consulted his wives in many matters, including those related to his position as head of state. I often consult my wife about matters because she has that tenderness, that relationship, that gravity toward relationships. Whereas a man, I often get stuck in task orientation. She brings me that balance. The Quran is very clear in stating that the only manner in which Allah holds one person in higher esteem than another person, regardless of gender, is by virtue of his or her degree of God consciousness, piety, or taqwa. That is the only way that you can be superior. And the only one that can judge that is Allah. I cannot judge how pious you are or how much taqwa you have. In Surah 49 and 13, O mankind, we created you from a single pair of a male and a female, that you may know each other. Verily, the most honored of you in the sight of Allah is the most righteous of you. So knowing each other is correlated with what? Righteousness. In my work in Sound House Relationship, or Sound Relationship House, the first thing that I do is I help couples build cognitive love maps and understanding of each other's psychological world and how that changes with a new job or with moving or with the birth of a baby or any major event. If you're in a relationship and you're married in Islam, you should know each other. And if we were wise teachers, we would sit down before our daughters and sons get married and we would make sure that they really know who they might be thinking about getting married to. But you see, people get real upset with me in the community because when I do that, I ask real questions. So I ask, what is the thing that maybe you have suffered from in your life the most? And how did you cope? And how is that going to affect your relationship? And if somebody happens to say, well, I was molested when I was a child, then I get a call from the parents and say, how dare you bring this up in the first session? And I'm castigated, criticized, and indicted for trying to create real realness in the relationship. Because if your husband can't be compassionate to you when you're meeting, knowing what's happening in your life, how are you ever going to be safe with him? You see, far too often, women have come in my office destroyed because they, out of love and out of equality and out of what Allah engendered them with, shared with their husband that maybe they were molested, and then the husband hated them and blamed them. This is haram. If I haven't given you sufficient verses today, I'm not done yet, by the way, to change your mind about this, then come and teach me how to do it. Because I know that God didn't intend for our sisters, when something happened to them, or our brothers when something happened to them that wasn't their fault, for them to be blamed for the rest of their life. Because let me tell you, when you're 8 years old and you get molested, you're helpless. You are powerless. When somebody that weighs 200 pounds is standing over you, making you do something and grooming you to do something you don't want to do, you are powerless. And that's not your fault. And to blame later for that is nothing but an injustice. And you can't be a garment whenever you take somebody's most difficult moment of life and rub it in their face and pour salt into the wound and say, suck it up and get over it. There's no compassion and there's no mercy in that.
Buy a gun and shoot them.
Some verses are commonly cited out of context from the Quran and Hadith by abusers to justify their maltreatment and manipulate their spousal behavior. This equates to spiritual abuse, and women will often comply in order not to anger God. The abuser's distorted presentation misleads victims. Many abusers justify their behavior by quoting the Prophet ﷺ saying, if I were to ask someone to bow down to another human being, I would order wives to bow down to their husbands. Lawyers in the room, what is this first clause called? Lawyers in the room, what is this called? A conditional clause. Did you hear them? They gave you free advice and nobody's going to get billed for that. Thank you, brother.
Thank you, $250 an hour.
A conditional clause. And by the way, I got to throw this in. Congratulations, Yazin, on being sworn in. MashaAllah. Allah bless you and make you a beacon of light for us, brother, inshallah. Abusers fail to acknowledge that the hadith begins with a conditional clause. Many scholars have questioned the authenticity of this hadith. It is reported that this hadith was narrated after a companion insisted on bowing to the Prophet ﷺ when he returned from travels in Shams, which he had seen others bowing to their priest. The Prophet ﷺ never allowed anyone to bow down to him or even stand when he entered the room. This is the humility of our beloved Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. Look at Surah 49 and verse 13. O mankind, we created you from a single pair of a male and a female that you may know each other. Verily the most honored of you in the sight of God is the most righteous of you. It is the degree to which one is God conscious that raises one person over another, not their gender. God rules over all His creation, and each person, male and female, is directly accountable to Him and Him alone. The verse most commonly used out of context to justify wife beating is the second half of Surah 4 and verse 34. I want you to look at the context, folks. As to those women on whose part you fear nushuz. Now nushuz, according to classical Arabic, is lewd conduct. Now an example of lewd conduct to me would be that at the potluck, my wife would be standing in the back corner kissing another man. That would be lewd. Does everybody agree with me? Okay. Now let's see what Allah says that I'm supposed to do about that. Allah now, not me, not my nafuz. As to those women on whose part you fear nushuz, even if you just fear it. Admonish them first. So that would look like Habibi. As a Muslima, you want to bring honor to our home. You want to guard our reputation. What you have done is unacceptable. That's admonished lightly, right?
Yes.
Yes? No?
I didn't understand that.
Next, the second time she does it. Now listen to the context. The second time she does it, refuse to share their bed. So now, my wife, now for the camera, this is hypothetical. My wife at the potluck is kissing another man in the back room for the second time. And I'm saying, I'm going to leave my king-size bed and let you stay in that bed by yourself for a little while. Let you think about it. Let you process what you're doing. And I'm going to go over here and I'm going to sleep on the couch. The third time it says, next, refuse to share their beds. And the third time, sorry, wadribuhuna. And I want to talk about that word. Now, I want to say about this verse, before I get to that word, that this is the very same verse that assigns men the responsibility of providing for women financially. So how is it that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the same verse is giving the responsibility to men, giving the responsibility even if the wife is guilty of the shoes, that we turn around and we don't give our women any break, period. Never mind if they've never even thought about the shoes. I have known men to beat their wives for burning the rice. I have known men to take the plate and throw it on the floor because they weren't happy with the dinner. This verse has often been misinterpreted by many to mean that women are to be blindly obedient to their husbands. The context of the verse is a three-step process to be implemented when a woman is promiscuous. Promiscuity undermines the family. The word nashuz does not refer to a woman expressing her opinion or exercising her free will within the boundaries of Islamic teaching. You see, far too often in the context, not in the text of what Allah says, the message that I hear in our community is women are supposed to be seen and not heard. And actually not seen unless it's absolutely necessary. So we will sequestrate you to a hot box that's not very pretty and expect you to be happy about worship. I don't see gender equality in that. The word nashuz, I already covered that. The same word has been used to describe man's aberrant behavior in Surah 4 verse 128 and has been translated by Yusuf Ali as cruelty and desertion. But we fail to see that. We talk over and over and over about this. One time I was in the masjid and a man was actually teaching boys how to beat their wives.
What?
Yes, ma'am. And I went and I told him I'm targeted. He took care of it. He did take care of it. He banned that little halakha. Yes, I actually witnessed this. The problem is one of interpretation and translation of the Quranic text from original Arabic. Only the original is accepted as the word of Allah. And Allah knows best. But what we do know when we are studying Quran, when we are studying Islam, is that the Quran and the Sunnah have to be together. If the Quran says one principle and the Sunnah says something else, what do we do? We look at the authenticity of that hadith, don't we? The first two steps outlined in Surah 4 verse 34 admonish them. Then leave them alone in the bed. The third step outlined in the verse is often translated, strike them lightly. In 14 translations that I have on my shelf, it says this, beat them lightly, strike them lightly. Now let's pause a minute. How many people here play baseball? Anybody here play baseball?
I played baseball.
Played baseball.
I played.
Okay. All right. I did too, believe it or not. It was the one sport I played. Not long, but I did. When you swing the bat and you don't hit the ball, but the ball was close enough to the bat, it is called a?
Strike.
I'm sorry, it's called a what?
Strike.
I don't understand. Did you strike the ball?
No,
So why do you call it a strike?
because you attempted.
Because you attempted.
Yeah.
Well, wait a minute now. So I do it again. Strike two! Did I hit the ball?
No,
Why you call it a strike? I'm confused now.
because you attempted.
Strike means to hit. I go back. Got my little stance just right. See, I do know one of those sports. Strike three! You're out! Did I hit the ball?
No.
So why you call it a strike then? Because words are used to mean different things, right?
Yes.
Daraba has also been translated in classical Arabic, and I have sought the nasiha of many scholars that the classical meaning of daraba is to leave. So that now after the third time that she has been naughty and lascivious and flirting with that man and kissing that other man, now I can leave. Now, it has been translated to go away from them, which is more consistent with the example of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam when he had difficulty with his wives.